Back in studio once again with the Josh Ryan, and Josh, since we're both wearing gray suits, I think we better talk about something else that's gray that happened last night.
Feels appropriate.
Of course, the Grey Cup, where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers won against the Hamilton Tiger Cats 33-12. Josh, just break down the game a little bit for me.
Well, I don't even need to break down the game to start with. It's first time in 29 years Winnipeg has won. When you think about how devoted that fan base is, obviously the Winnipeg Jets have an awesome following in the NHL. They didn't have the Jets for a long time, so the Blue Bombers are all they've had. Many years they haven't been in the playoffs, and to get this sort of win really means a lot to the city of Winnipeg. And there's so many different stories. You have obviously Andrew Harris winning Grey Cup MVP, 134 rushing yards, really special season for him in this special run in the playoffs. The other guy that stands out to me is Zach Collaros, a guy who started the season with a concussion, which is certainly no easy thing to recover from. Spends time on two different rosters before eventually ending up as the quarterback on this team. For them to then go on the run they did, upsetting the Stampeders and now winning the Grey Cup in Calgary is pretty remarkable.
For sure, and you talk about Collaros. He's a guy, huge veteran presence just in that locker room alone. He between just him just not throwing interceptions, keeping a lot of the other players calm, he's a huge addition for that Blue Bombers team. And then you also touched on Andrew Harris, first player to win Most Outstanding Canadian and the Most Outstanding Player in that Grey Cup game. And then also just being from Winnipeg and coming to the Blue Bombers and saying, I'm here to win a championship for my city. I agree, that's huge. Another player who really stood out to me, another Winnipeg player, or rather from Winnipeg, Dembski there. Him and Harris actually went to the same high school. So just to have two high school athletes now playing in the CFL, not just playing, but dominating and winning the Grey Cup, I think that's a pretty unbelievable storyline there.
For sure, and obviously you, as a fan, you sometimes want the games to be a little bit closer, but for fans of the Blue Bombers, and certainly the Blue Bombers players, there's a certain satisfaction they can take from winning the game as dominantly as they did, holding the ball for 35 minutes of the entire runtime, a pretty specifically dominant performance. A team that has not been very dominant in recent weeks, certainly, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Calgary Flames, another team that has struggled, but the Leafs have been more on the forefront of the national stage with the NHL. And now this coaching change, Mike Babcock gone. You saw a really cool speech from John Tavares in the locker room, their first game after Babcock was gone. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond given all the talent on this roster.
For sure. And what I like about bringing in O'Keefe is he's a former player himself, so he can relate to a lot of those young guys. He was in their shoes at one point in his career. And as well, he started off with the Marlies, and before that, Sault Ste. Marie of the OHL. So just, having that expertise, I guess, working with the young players and relating to young NHL players just breaking in, that's going to be huge for this Maple Leafs lineup.
Absolutely. It's something that Toronto has done in a number of years. They've had really talented coaches come through the Marlies pipeline. Obviously, Dallas Aikens didn't work out very well for Edmonton, but he was highly touted because of his time with the Marlies, and they've really continued to move that on through the years.
Yeah, and now talking about another Maple Leaf here, the Davis Cup Tennis Championship, for those who don't know, just wrapped up, and Canada walked away with quite high honors.
Indeed. So obviously this is the first year that the Davis Cup, which is the biggest tennis international competition where teams in past years would compete against each other over the course of the year in multiple competitions, has now been moved to more of a World Cup format where it's basically 1 or 2 weeks, all the games are wrapped up in there. And a phenomenal performance by Canada. They defeat Italy and the United States, both higher ranked teams in the round robin, then Australia in the quarterfinals, then Russia in the semifinals, before losing to Spain, number 5 ranked team in the world who would win. Obviously, Rafael Nadal makes a big difference in the final, but it's a pretty amazing performance. Ali Yassim, the young phenom, he was injured for most of the week, so 150th ranked Vasek Pospisil fills in, and he beats multiple top 20 ranked players to get them in. So pretty amazing year for tennis in Canada.
For sure. And I mean, like you said, just in Canada in general, all the championships or whatnot, the future's looking pretty bright for those Canadian tennis stars.
Absolutely.